In 1948, Richard Wurmbrand, a Romanian pastor, stood before a congregation of communist officials who had gathered to celebrate their regime's atheistic ideals. It was a pivotal moment. Communism had just taken hold in Eastern Europe, and Christianity was under attack. The government expected compliance, not confrontation. Many clergy complied, aligning themselves with the party to protect their own safety and standing. But Wurmbrand had no intention of bowing to fear or political pressure. As he took the stage, his wife Sabina whispered, "Richard, stand up and wash away the shame from Christ's name." With boldness, he proclaimed the truth of Jesus Christ to the very people who sought to silence the gospel. His words were not well received by the authorities, but they inspired believers in the room. Wurmbrand knew the risk, imprisonment or worse. But his commitment to Christ far outweighed his concern for personal safety. Wurmbrand's courage mirrors the Apostle Paul's in Acts chapter 25, beginning in verse 13. In this passage, Paul has been in prison for 2 years, unfairly accused by the Jewish leaders. The Roman governor Festus doesn't know what to make of him, and that's where our passage picks up. Now when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. And as they stayed there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, "There is a man left prisoner by Felix. And when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him." King Agrippa, a ruler from the Herodian dynasty, and his sister Bernice visit Caesarea to greet Festus, the new Roman governor. Agrippa, a man of influence and power, is drawn into a discussion when Festus shares the perplexing case of Paul. Just imagine the scene. Paul, a seemingly insignificant man in stature, standing before these powerful leaders, yet holding the life-changing message of the risen Jesus. Festus, puzzled by the accusations against Paul, explains that the case hinges on a certain Jesus who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. We find that in Acts chapter 25, verse 19. This claim, the resurrection, is the foundation of Paul's faith and mission. Paul's confidence doesn't waver because he knows the resurrection is real. It's his reality, not just a theological concept. This conviction drives him to share Jesus boldly, even with the leaders who may not understand. Paul's appeal to Caesar, his right as a Roman citizen, adds another layer to the story. Festus admits he doesn't know how to handle the situation, and this appeal guarantees that Paul will take the gospel to Rome, the heart of the empire. From a human perspective, it might seem like Paul is trying to avoid judgment, but through the lens of faith, it is clear that God is orchestrating events for his purposes. Paul's unwavering faith reminds us that God can use any circumstance, no matter how daunting, to fulfill his mission. Even as a prisoner, Paul saw himself as a partner in God's work, trusting that his trials would create opportunities to share the gospel with those in positions of influence. When Agrippa expresses interest in hearing from Paul, the meeting transforms into a divine appointment. It's not just a legal hearing. It's a chance for Paul to present the hope of Jesus to people of great power. His courage to stand firm, even under pressure, is a reminder that God's message cannot be stopped. As followers of Christ, we too are called to share Jesus with boldness, regardless of the challenges we face. Paul's life teaches us two critical lessons. First, our faith must be rooted in the resurrection of Jesus, the foundation of our hope. The same risen Savior who empowered Paul walks with us today, giving us strength to stand firm in the face of opposition. Second, God can use any situation, even adversity, for His glory. When we approach life with courage and conviction, trusting in His sovereignty, God opens doors we might never expect. So let's take inspiration from Paul. No matter how intimidating our circumstances may seem, we carry a message of hope that can change lives. By living in the reality of the resurrection and trusting God's purposes, we can boldly share Jesus with a world that desperately needs Him. Who can you share Him with today?